You lay them down, gently, carefully, holding your breath like you're diffusing a bomb. Their back touches the mattress. 2 seconds pass. And then, eyes wide open, crying. You pick them up. 30 seconds later, asleep. Deep, peaceful, gone. You've tried this 4 times tonight. The result is always the same. And somewhere around 2 a.m., you stop trying and let them sleep on your chest, wondering if you've just failed some kind of parenting test. But over the last 2 decades, neuroscientists in Japan, Israel, and the United States have been studying exactly what happens inside your baby's body during those moments. The laying down, the waking, the crying, the calming. And what they found doesn't just change how you think about sleep. It changes how you understand what your baby is actually asking for, and why the answer was never the crib. The standard explanation sounds perfectly reasonable. Your baby has gotten used to being held. You've created an association. Arms equals sleep. And the more you give in, the more dependent they become. It's a habit. And like all habits, the solution is to break it. That logic makes sense. It's clean, simple, and it's what most sleep advice is built on. But here's the problem with that theory. In 2013, a team at the RIKEN Brain Science Institute in Japan, led by Gianluca Esposito, published a study in the journal Current Biology that measured infant heart rate, movement, and crying behavior during carrying versus holding still versus laying down. What they found was that the calming wasn't learned. It was automatic. The instant a baby was picked up and carried, their heart rate dropped, their voluntary movement ceased, and their crying stopped. Not because of comfort preference, but because of a neurologically hardwired response called the transport response. It wasn't habit. It was biology. And telling parents to override it is like telling someone to train their knee not to jerk when tapped. The transport response is one of the most conserved mammalian reflexes in existence. Esposito's team found the same response in human infants, mouse pups, and lion cubs. When a mammalian mother picks up her offspring and moves, the offspring's body enters a cooperative state. Heart rate decelerates, posture compacts, crying ceases. This isn't soothing. This is a survival program. In evolutionary terms, a crying baby being carried by a moving mother is a target. The nervous system learned, over millions of years, to go quiet during transport. Your baby isn't calming down because your arms are comfortable. They're calming down because their brain received an ancient signal that says, "I am being moved. I must cooperate to survive." But the transport response only explains the carrying. It doesn't explain why they need you to stay close while they sleep. For that, you need a different study and a different layer of biology. James McKenna, a biological anthropologist at the University of Notre Dame, spent over 2 decades studying mother-infant pairs in a sleep laboratory. His research, published across multiple papers including a major review with Thomas McDade in 2005, showed something that most sleep training advice completely ignores. When a baby sleeps in contact with a parent's body, their breathing synchronizes, their heart rate stabilizes, their temperature is regulated by the parent's skin. When separated, placed in a crib on the other side of the room, those 3 systems become measurably less stable. Your baby's body is not fully self-regulating. Their respiratory rhythm, their cardiac rhythm, their thermal regulation. These systems are still under construction. And the construction crew is you. Your heartbeat is their metronome. Your breathing is their rhythm. Your body heat is their thermostat. When you lay them in the crib, you're not putting them to bed. You're unplugging them from every regulatory system they depend on. And they wake up, not because they're spoiled, but because their body just lost its operating system. Think about the last time you held your baby in the dark at 3 in the morning. Your back aching, your eyes closing, maybe thinking about the article you read that said you need to let them learn to self-soothe. And there they are, perfectly still, perfectly calm, breathing in sync with your chest. That synchronization isn't a flaw. That synchronization is the system working exactly as it was designed. The pediatric psychoanalyst Donald Winnicott, working at the Tavistock Clinic in London, named this in 1960. He called it the holding environment. Not a metaphor, a literal physiological concept. A newborn's nervous system does not yet have the architecture to regulate itself. It relies on an external regulator, a human body that breathes, pulses, warms, and moves. You are not creating a dependency. You are serving as the external scaffolding for a system that hasn't finished building itself yet. Every minute you hold them, you're not spoiling them. You're constructing them. The transport response explains why they calm in your arms. The holding environment explains why they need you close. But researchers at Bar Ilan University in Israel found something that adds an entirely new layer. Because the connection during sleep isn't just physical regulation, it's chemical. And what they measured changes the entire conversation about what contact means. In 2014, Ruth Feldman and her team at Bar Ilan University published a study in Biological Psychiatry that measured oxytocin levels, the hormone most associated with bonding, trust, and social attachment, in both mothers and infants during different types of contact. They placed tiny sensors on mothers and babies. They measured salivary oxytocin before, during, and after periods of skin-to-skin contact versus periods of proximity without touch. What they found was that skin-to-skin contact didn't just increase oxytocin in the mother, it increased oxytocin in the baby simultaneously. And not randomly, the levels synchronized. When the mother's oxytocin rose, the baby's rose in tandem. When contact was removed, both dropped, together. This means that when your baby presses their skin against yours during sleep, they are not just being warmed or held. Their brain is receiving a chemical signal that says, "You are safe. You are connected. You are not alone." And that signal is not imagination. It is measurable, molecular, and bidirectional. Your baby is not clinging to you out of weakness. They are reaching for a biochemical handshake that their nervous system requires to function. They are saying, in the only language they have, "My body needs your body to complete a circuit that I cannot complete alone." And when you pull away, when the crib separates skin from skin, the circuit breaks, oxytocin drops, and the baby does the only thing a baby can do when their chemical lifeline is severed. They cry. Here's what the long-term research shows. Feldman's longitudinal studies tracking children from infancy through adolescence found that infants who received more skin-to-skin contact in the first months showed measurably better stress regulation at age 10. Their cortisol responses were more modulated. Their ability to self-soothe, the very skill people worry about, was stronger. Not weaker, stronger. The babies who were held more didn't become more dependent, they became more independent. Because the external regulation they received built the internal architecture they would eventually use on their own. McKenna's work supports the same conclusion. Infants who slept in close contact with a parent during the early months showed more stable autonomic function, steadier breathing, fewer apnea episodes, more consistent cardiac rhythms, compared to infants who slept alone from the beginning. Every night you hold your baby when they refuse the crib. Every hour your arm goes numb. Every morning your back aches. You are not forming a bad habit. You are laying down neural and hormonal infrastructure. You are building the very system that will, one day, allow them to close their eyes in a dark room, alone, and feel safe. Not because you trained them, because you built them. Now, a note that matters. Most babies go through phases of intense contact need. This is normal. This is biological. This is expected. Some babies need more contact than others, and the timeline varies enormously. However, if your baby seems unable to be soothed by any form of contact, or if they seem rigid and distressed even when held, or if you notice that their need for holding seems to be increasing rather than gradually evolving, it's worth mentioning to your pediatrician. Not because something is wrong, but because early identification of sensory processing differences allows for early support, and early support makes a profound difference. Trust what you feel. You are not overreacting. You are not being paranoid. You are probably the most finely tuned instrument in the world for reading your own baby's signals. If something feels off, honor that feeling. That's not anxiety. That's your nervous system doing what it was designed to do, monitoring theirs. So the next time you lay your baby down, and they wake up, again, and you pick them up, again, and they melt into your chest within seconds, remember what's actually happening. Their heart is syncing to yours. Their breathing is borrowing your rhythm. Their oxytocin is rising because your skin told their brain that the world is safe. Their entire nervous system is using your body as a blueprint for the one they're building inside themselves. You are not a crutch. You are a co-regulator. You are not forming a dependency. You are forming a human being. Millions of years of evolution did not design babies to sleep alone in silent boxes. It designed them to sleep against the chest of someone whose heartbeat they already know, because they heard it before they were born. And when your baby refuses the crib and chooses you, that is not a failure. That is the oldest signal in the human species. It is your child saying, in the language that existed before words, "You are my safe place. Stay." One day, they will sleep alone. Not because you trained them to, but because, night after night, breath after breath, you gave them everything they needed to carry your rhythm inside their own body. And when they finally close their eyes on their own, the heartbeat they find is yours. If this changed how you see those long nights, subscribe to Before Words and tell me in the comments, what is the longest you've held your baby while they slept? I want to hear your story. And if you've ever noticed that your baby stares at your mouth when you speak, not your eyes, your mouth, the reason is extraordinary. That's the next video, and the science behind it will change how you talk to your child forever.